the holder of the grant. Now, this is something I didn't say but should have, I suppose, is that when a grant is awarded, it's not awarded to the PI, it's not awarded to the scientist, it's awarded to the institution. So the institution has responsibility for retaining data, and therefore, by that, that means that they have responsibility to make sure that the PIs and the students and the grad students and postdocs all know that there's a responsibility to keep data and to keep it at the institution when an individual leaves. They can take copies, but not the original data. The institution has an obligation. Now, do they do it all? No, but they're supposed to. And so there are guidelines. Whether it's honored or not is another matter. So, but ORI has talked about, I mean, it's hard for ORI because we're a regulatory agency to provide guidance on areas that are not directly related to research misconduct. So data retention is an important issue. I talked about it for years. We should do something about it, but it always, you know, we're busy, so we never got around to doing anything in terms of having a meeting on this, for example. It would have been a good idea. But it's absolutely important. And it's becoming more of an issue as more and more data is electronic, and people are not keeping paper records like they used to. So the electronic data can be fine, except that how much of it is being carefully monitored, or how much of it is being, you know, the institution or the university should have policies on retention of electronic data too. And I don't think they're doing that very well.
Since nobody asked questions, so I'll ask more questions. Now, when you look at all those misconduct cases, if you do a statistic, do you find that a particular university, that is high-profile university, made more mistakes or fewer mistakes? You know, Harvard, MIT, you know, they are high-pressure places, so people, are they more prone to making mistakes or deliberate?
It goes with the money.
What do you mean?
There's a direct relationship. We actually looked at this years ago. One of my colleagues got a list from NIH of the top 100 institutions receiving NIH funds, and, you know, 1, 2 to 100. And we did a comparison with the number of cases that we had from each institution, and it's pretty much a collinear relationship between the amount of NIH money and the number of cases we've seen over 20 years or 15 years. There are some exceptions, but in general, it's associated with how much research money an institution has. I mean, people are going to behave mostly well, but any occupation, whether you're police or whether you're teachers or whether you're or priests or scientists, there's going to be a small percent of any population that's not going to be honest. And so that you know, it's kind of built into human nature. So scientists, there's going to be 1% that are going to be dishonest. And since you have large institutions, you have more people that are dishonest at a large institution.
Well, in terms of looking to the future, now, I know some journals like, you know, Cell, when they receive manuscripts that demand some pre-check or whatever. Now, do you think in each institution or say in our place, we should install those kind of pre-checking of the data, because all those tools are there.
Right.
So should we, to prevent this kind of thing happen, should the institution do those monitoring process?
Good question again. That's been talked about on and off. I remember having a talk with a Rio at Wayne State University years ago who wanted to propose that. The problem is that in the United States you have unions on some schools, you have Senate faculty, Senate meetings in which you know, they basically are resistant to any kind of oversight. So it's difficult to think about how it could be done unless it's done by federal regulation or whatever. And it wouldn't be a practical thing to do it for everybody, but if it were done on a spot check basis, it might be effective. I mean, I think individual PIs should be doing it anyway, but it would enhance prevention by, I think profoundly, by doing it, say, 1% of the labs per year, or 2%, something like that. It's a good idea.
Different, here we are dealing with mostly biomedical area, but of course there are different disciplines, engineering or physics and so on. They have different kinds of issues or problems. So the tool here may not be applicable to others.
That's correct.
So,
And reality is that most of the cases of misconduct, most of the retractions are in biomedical research, with some quite rare exceptions. And I'm not sure why, but I think it's a much bigger field, a lot more people in it. And there's also a lot of inducement to succeed with an invention or a product that can make you rich. I mean, that's a motivation in the United States in many cases, where you do the right kind of biomedical discovery, and all of a sudden you're setting up a company, and that's I think a cofactor in misconduct.
yes.
Well, thank you for your talk today, and you taught us a lot of how to define the misconduct. I think that's very important. You mentioned that, well, this is human nature. And in ORI, you have two divisions. How about education? Do you have any data to prove that the educational program can actually decrease the misconduct?
That's an excellent
Looking for the
question.
future, I mean.
I'm getting a lot of excellent questions today. When David Wright was director of ORI for all too brief period of time, he actually asked that question because he doesn't believe himself that RCR has a big impact on improving, on decreasing misconduct. We believe it's more effective in decreasing questionable research practices. And I think it's useful. Everyone seems to think it's a good idea. But because you have, this small population that probably is not going to be able to be educated and will commit misconduct regardless, it's still useful. So I think it's a two-pronged approach in terms of education and prevention. One is continued increased RCR, and we have David actually organized a meeting on this topic several years ago, and we had a number of speakers who have talked about what they think would enhance the capacity of RCR to work. And one of the problems, of course, is that RCR, as I mentioned earlier, taught quite differently in different areas, because the things that you want to talk about to your staff might be different than someone else's staff because they don't do the same kind of research. So the same kind of issues aren't really relevant to discuss. But that said, because of the variable nature of RCR and how no one's really trying to quantify outcome measures, we don't have any useful data on whether it really makes a difference or not. Prevention is another area which I think is equally important. Your proposal is crucial to that kind of idea, as well as, I said, mentorship and being suspicious and looking at data.
Let me ask one last question. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Wen. Appreciate a lot about the talk today. My question is, I personally get involved in running the editorial office in the local SCI journal, and we do receive some manuscript with research misconduct issue. And my question is, in your opinion, should the editorial office of the journal, especially the high-impact journal, have the responsibility to publish the misconduct issue results?
I I don't know about publishing the results of misconduct investigations. Journals do, in a variable way, do have an interest in preventing misconduct by detecting it. Many journals are looking at images very carefully. Many journals are requiring complete gels to be sent along with the manuscript. All that is now happening more and more because of concerns about image manipulation. Something like 75 or 80% of our cases involved manipulated images, so it's a huge problem. And automatic software is available for some journals use, but it's really the eye that measures the problem, because the software is not going to measure a problem where the same figure was published in 2 or 3 different papers and said to be 3 different experiments. The same figure, 3 experiments. That's not going to be picked up by, software. So it's memory, it's recognizing problems, internal duplications. But the problem with journals is that they see a lot more misconduct than ORI does. But they can't take the time, or they're pressed for time. They can't send it. We got some cases from journals, but most of them they deal with directly, and they'll simply reject the paper, or they'll send it back to the corresponding author, which I say is the same as putting the fox in the hen house.
Okay, let me make sort of a comment. I think this research community is like any living organism, like human. I mean, from time to time we get cancers, and your detection methods now becoming more and more sensitive, so you can detect cancer earlier. But that doesn't mean that cancer will go away.
Right.
So sometimes people has an expectation that we have a zero tolerance society. I think that's unrealistic in my view. People will make mistakes. Often, many of those misconduct cases are conducted by very intelligent people, because they can design the experiment to fit your expectation. That requires some knowledge and expertise. Am I right?
Yeah.
So you cannot prevent this human nature that. For whatever reason, they make those mistakes, for promotion, for getting rich, or whatever. There will be a percentage, I don't know how low, but it will not be 0% that people will do this. So it's a matter of education. I think it's important. We educate people to have high integrities and so on. Some people challenge that this workshop is not very useful. I read from the news comments, but I do feel that I think this kind of message should be delivered over and over again. I mean, it may be boring for some people, but I think we should do that. So I thank you very much for your talk here and give us a chance to learn. I think the Most and Minister of Education will have some comments, right? Yeah. I don't know who will do that.
Shall we all give a round of applause to Dr. John Delbert as well as Dr. Andrew Wang for sharing their expert experience on promoting research integrity and responding to research misconduct. Now we enter closing remarks. We invite 2 very important hosts, the joint hosts of today. First, we would like to invite Dr. Chen Dexing, the Vice Minister of the Ministry of Science and Technology, to give us some closing remarks. Chen Dexing次长，科技部，谢谢。
Dr. John Delbert， 我们敬爱的今天的主持人，中央研究院王惠金院士，以及吴成文院士，各位与会贵宾、女士、先生，教育部、科技部的同仁，大家好。首先，感谢美国学术伦理办公室 ORI 的前主任 Dr. John Delbert， 在风尘仆仆从美国来台湾的今天的讲座中，来跟我们分享美国学术伦理的相关制度，以及 实务处理之